Hello and welcome to Meet Your Ministers. I'm Shereen Bhan and we're in conversation with Piyush Goyal. Mr. Goyal, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Should I call you India's first integrated energy minister? Because you have coal, renewable energy and power under your belt. How hard is the challenge ahead of you?
Well, I see it more as an opportunity. It's a great opportunity to bring about synergies in the three sectors. It's a great opportunity to look at the whole problem in a holistic manner. And the tremendous potential that India has can be harnessed in a more balanced fashion so that we can really move towards a more environment-friendly energy policy. And I think over the next 5 years, one major focus is going to be the energy security of India going forward.
You know, I'll get to energy security in just a bit, but I want you to put on your power minister's hat and talk to me about the recent development in which is the government's decision to actually defer gas prices by at least another 3 months. You know, power producers have been coming to you possibly already crying about the fact that power plants are running on minimal PLF or they're stranded because there's been lack of gas supply. As Power Minister, what are you going to tell them today? Because there was a Rangarajan formula, it was approved by the previous government, it was held in abeyance because the Model Code of Conduct came into place. And now our understanding is that your government intends to review this matter afresh, comprehensively. So are you junking the Rangarajan formula altogether?
Well, that decision is for the Petroleum Minister to take, and I would urge you to find out from him. But the fact of life is that a lot of the decisions of the earlier government do need to be revisited. It's not as if we are changing everything. The government works in continuity. But when there are certain things which are patently on the face of it not acceptable, take the case of the Rangarajan formula. I was a part of the standing committee which studied the whole gas pricing issue. Now, I certainly don't believe you can have an imported price fixation or calibration, which includes Japan. Japan is itself an importer of gas.
So minus the Japan contribution, minus JPC, I'm just saying that, is that the biggest anomaly to your mind as far as the Rangarajan formula is concerned?
If you read our standing committee report, a number of anomalies were found in the whole concept of gas pricing. Now, it is our duty to recheck and reconfirm whether everything is kosher. And I think the government has just been in office for just about a month now. And I think it's important for the government to take some time and study the issue in its entirety. Power plants do have an issue, but power plants were never assured either the supply of gas or the pricing of gas when these plants were set up. I studied this in detail. I flagged it off with the power producers, and very clearly it has emerged that this was a business decision of the companies in question.
And so they face the risk and they bear the risk of that.
There are government companies involved, there are private companies involved, and there are public sector, state public utilities.
So they were
Having said that, I don't shirk away from my responsibility. These are national assets that have been created. I do not wish to just put the entire onus on them. I'm sure there might have been some sort of comfort that was given that there will be adequate gas in India at that point of time. I'm sure there must have been some comfort that power requirement is huge and therefore gas, being a clean energy, is also valuable. I will look at it with an open mind. I will find a way to balance the consumer's interest along with the interest of making these plants sustainable and viable.
Let me ask you this, as a power minister, and this was something that the previous government was also dealing with. Should there be a different price as far as the power sector is concerned, as far as the fertilizer sector is concerned? The previous government was talking about some sort of a subsidy being worked out. What is your assessment? And whether it is the Rangarajan formula eventually or a different kind of formula, I would imagine that the BJP stands committed to a more market-determined price of gas. Is that correct? Is that assumption correct? And whether it's 8 or it's 6.5 or 6.7 or 7, is there likely to be a differential price of gas for the power and fertilizer sector?
Well, I do not know what will be decided finally. I'm not personally aware of what the Petroleum Minister and the government has thought as the next steps for the gas prices. But I can certainly flag off one thought for your consumption. Power and fertilizer are two things which impact the consumer directly, and the final consumer has a certain expectation of quality product at affordable price.
So you would be in favor of a subsidy for these two sectors if the price of gas were to be high?
I would be in favor of making sure the last man on the street is not burdened beyond reasonable limit, and I would be in favor of ensuring that investments made in India survive, investment made in India flourish, while simultaneously protecting the customer's interest.
So, which also means that you are in favor of a more market-linked or a market-determined price of gas?
I don't know whether I said one or the other, but you're free to choose and put words in my mouth.
Let me move away from the gas issue and talk about the other big issue that you are faced with, and that is what you intend doing with Coal India and what you intend doing as far as opening up the coal sector is concerned. I know privatization of Coal India is perhaps not on the table. Perhaps that is an aspirational wish for industry at this point in time, but opening up the coal sector, denationalizing coal, how quickly are we likely to see your government move towards that? Is this a priority for you?
Well, I have still been studying the issue in its entirety. There have been 2 reports on this subject in the last few years, and I'm going through what possible solutions are there to improve the production, productivity, efficiency, quality of coal in the country. Coal India itself has a lot of potential. There are a number of mines all over the country. There's potential to increase the productivity, improve the quality of coal that is mined from there, bring more stringent checks, incentivize productivity.
Sure.
And I'm focusing on that for the present.
But you don't want to restructure it. You don't want to split it up into different verticals.
Well, you know, once I visited Calcutta and took a review of the coal companies, I actually found great strength and benefits of the companies remaining as one. While on a valuation perspective, maybe a split of Coal India into 7 companies may look as a good proposition to unlock more value. But then you do have to realize there are a couple of those companies which are not making profits. You will have to appreciate that country has so far looked at coal linkages from time to time on a standalone basis.
Right.
I'm actually trying to rationalize the coal linkages.
So restructuring is not on the table as far as Coal India is concerned as of today. But what about opening up the sector? What about attracting private investment? Because that, in a sense, is also the answer to your problems on the power side.
All options are under consideration. We are already planning to auction certain coal mines. There, I'm having a little bit of a...
How soon can we see the coal auction take place?
You know, some of the mines are ready for auction as we speak. But I'm just reviewing a new concept, Shereen, and I'm open to suggestions.
Plug-and-play concept.
The plug-and-play concept. I'm looking at the concept, if I can get the land acquired, get the environmental approvals, get the mining plan approved. I talked to some of the bankers and they were delighted when they heard this. Because then it becomes more bankable. The investors, the people who will take up and bid these projects will also give a far better value. They don't have to, you know, go around offices, just desk to desk trying to get things done.
Essentially plays facilitator.
Right, and right now this government is working without silos. I actually pick up the phone and call up the Environment Minister to flag off an issue or to seek a meeting in the next 24 hours and sort out issues.
But to be able to put this plug-and-play model of yours into place, what does it mean then for a timeline as far as the auction is concerned?
Even if it means a slightly longer timeline than auctioning it tomorrow, for instance, in the ultimate perspective, it will productionize much faster.
I get that, but a broad sense of by when do you actually realistically see this getting off the ground?
We are looking at the processes and procedures both on the land acquisition side and environment separately.
So are you going to wait then for your colleague Nitin Gadkari to move the amendments to the Land Acquisition Act? This is what he's suggesting.
Enabling environment and bringing out more and more coal mines which are available. Of course, you are aware that a lot of it is sub judice. A lot of the deallocated mines have gone to court, and we'll have to wait for final decision, which I hope happens quickly.
Let me talk to you about your meeting with the bankers that actually took place and your meeting with power producers that took place. What is going to be the priority as far as fixing the distribution side of the business is concerned? You've talked about, you know, examples like Rajasthan, where distribution losses have mounted to about 50,000 crore rupees already over the last 5 years. You're dealing with the problems in Delhi. Do you believe in taking the privatization route to fix the distribution problems? What is going to be the priority?
I'm open again to all routes. It's not about, again, whether private sector does or public sector does. We'll have to do capacity building in both sectors. The public sector has a role to play, has sufficient capacity to meet a particular set of requirement. Private sector will supplement that. Currently, India's transmission is only 4 or 5% private. I'm looking to expand that quite significantly, and just today, we have cleared 9 new projects worth about 12,500 crores, which will get into bidding and will very quickly be implemented on a timeline. And I'm hoping to bring stiff penalties for any delay. And I'm hoping in the process to reduce the congestion in Haryana, strengthen the power evacuation from different power plants which have capacity to produce. And they will benefit states like Haryana, Chhattisgarh, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra by enabling higher capacity 765 kV lines, which will sustain for a longer
time. But how are you going to attract private investment given the track record of the experience
of course,
this sector?
These are EPC contracts which will be paid for. But I'm visualizing in the long run a national transmission grid, which could be privately owned or which could also be partly public, partly private. And everybody could pay for riding on each other's lines.
You know, especially as far as Delhi is concerned, because you've been looking at the Delhi example, do you have misgivings with what the distribution success or failure has been in Delhi? Because the previous Delhi government, and I'm not talking about the Sheila Dikshit government, but I'm talking about the Arvind Kejriwal government, was threatening cancellation of licenses and so on and so forth. Do you believe that the distribution companies, the private companies, are more at fault than the administration?
I think both are at fault. Ultimately, transmission and setting up a transmission system which can bring power into Delhi and take it to the DISCOMs was the responsibility of the erstwhile state government. I think they have failed to meet the growing population of Delhi's requirements. They have failed to bring about greater accountability of the DISCOMs, and over the last few years have allowed the DISCOMs to accumulate losses, and which is a very unfortunate failure of governance and control over what is happening. Having said that, the DISCOMs are equally to blame for not having adequately strengthened distribution network, controlling the power theft that is rampant in large parts of Delhi.
You're in favor of a CAG audit of DISCOM?
I'm in favor of a complete audit. In fact, I would urge the CAG to do an audit faster. At the same time, the government that you referred to should have set things right. If they believe that the DISCOMs were responsible and only responsible, I wish they had taken some action. It's very easy to give platitudes and very easy to run away after 49 days. Our government doesn't run away from problems. We face it squarely, but we address those problems in a sustainable way. Taking an action, for example, of cancelling a DISCOM license, I'll have to take on a liability. Is the public ready for the government to take on a liability that is going to come along with the takeover?
Clearly,
so I have to look at every aspect and take a considered and serious view about what to do about on this.
Speaking of taking a considered and serious view, and you talked about transport cost rationalization, what about tariff rationalization and trying to get state governments on board to actually look at viable tariffs? Because that is something that is plaguing this sector at this point in time. You can't do it's not under your control because you need to bring state chief ministers on board. Have you met with success in your conversations with state chief ministers so far, and can we expect positive movement on this front?
Of course, you can expect positive movement. I am in dialogue with the chief ministers, but I don't think it's only about tariff revision. The dialogue will again have to be encompassing what is going to be done so that the final consumer can be guaranteed quality power. That assurance,
24/7 power, which is the promise you're making.
That assurance will help state governments to perform better. Now, you can't say that first you pay me more money, you pay me for my inefficiency, for my inability to control theft, you pay me for my buying power at inflated or large prices, and then I will give you service. I think governments will have to be responsible to the people to give them power, assured power, quality power, and I'm sure if the people are asked to work together with the governments, if there is need, I'm not even sure if there will be need, but should there be need for some rationalization, people will be happy to support it.
24/7 promise that you've made as far as electricity is concerned, what to your mind will be the biggest challenge in order to achieve that?
Just two. I need to strengthen the transmission and distribution network ASAP and that will include feeder separation for agriculture. And B, at the end, I'll have to have metering, 100% metering and
Which is the Gujarat model that you've talked about. But how easy is it going to be to implement the Gujarat model in other states as well and on a national level, separating the residential line from the agriculture line? You know, how easy is it going to be to do this?
Gujarat has been successful, Madhya Pradesh has been successful, Chhattisgarh has been successful, and the people have voted all three governments back. And on the back of that, they have trusted my government in Delhi to perform. Having said that, I think that model may not be bad for other states to look at because that model gets you re-elected 3 times. The people of your state are happy. That model helps you become Prime Minister of India. I think there are many aspirants in this country who should start looking at serving their people better and maybe pose a challenge to my government.